and welcome to Wrestling Coast to Coast with your host, singular, Buddy Sotelo Esquire. And boy, we are going from coast to coast this time because we have, again, our massively talented and good friend, Wayne Mattei, all the way from Australia, joining us tonight. And I could start off at the top by saying that you're the guy who plays Sgt Slaughter on Young Rock, but there's so much more that is to you about all of you tonight, and I really want to go in depth and find out so much that we didn't get to talk about last time because we had two guests on your show. Now we have Wayne on exclusively. So let me start at the top here by saying one thing. I love Australia. I've never been to Australia, but it's one of the big bucket list things for myself is to go visit Australia. So why don't you tell everyone where you're from and where you're located in Australia?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I live in a state called South Australia, which is right down the bottom. I live in a beautiful area called Seacombe Heights, which is basically right up on top of a hill. So where we live, we can see right down the coastline of South Australia. We can see the ocean. We can see the city. We can see the hills around the other side of our house. We can see the airport with the planes coming in and out, which is really nice. And it's fantastic for New Year's Eve. You see fireworks going off everywhere. It's beautiful.
Were you born there or did you move to that part of Australia?
No, I was born in South Australia. I was born in the beach town called Glenelg, which is just down the hill from where we are. So it was beautiful. I used to be able to ride my bike from home down to the beach, go for a swim. I used to work down at Glenelg in an amusement centre called Magic Mountain when it used to be there. So it used to be great.
Yeah, we have one in California too, down in Southern California, but it's not exactly the same thing. But different, same name, but very different style of park. But so let's start at the very beginning. And we didn't really have a chance to ask you, how did you get started first in professional wrestling, and where did your love of professional wrestling come from?
Look, probably when I was extremely young, maybe around 5 or so, my dad was somewhat of a wrestling fan, and we were just at the time getting WWF on TV late at night, 11, 12 o'clock at night. It was really ridiculous, and I was so young I couldn't watch it. But I used to try and stay awake on my bunk bed, and where my bed was in the bedroom, if I hung off the edge just enough without falling off, I could see the TV in the lounge room, and I used to try and watch it. And then my parents actually bought a Beta video recorder, one of the first ones that ever came out. So my dad knew how to record. Yeah, so he started recording the wrestling for me, and I started watching it. And it was about that time that WrestleMania 1 was going to happen. And that was on a Sunday. I can't remember exactly when, but it was on a Sunday afternoon. So I got sat down. I had all my food. I had drinks. I had my dad behind me. And I sat there and just watched WrestleMania 1 in amazement. I could not believe what was happening on the TV. I'd never seen anything like it in my life. And that kind of hooked me from then, from WrestleMania 1 onwards, that I had an absolute love for wrestling. Couldn't get away from it.
So explain to me how you got started actually in the ring itself and where you started as a wrestler in Australia.
Yeah, look, that's an interesting story. I, at that time, owned a security company, and we were approached by an independent wrestling company to supply security to a show. I didn't know we had independent wrestling here in Australia, otherwise I would have been going to watch it a long time before, but it's the first time I'd ever heard of it. And they said, look, would you be interested in doing that? And I said, I love wrestling. I said, absolutely. I said, I will even come and work the show myself just so I can watch. And they're like, great, okay. So I got my team together and we went down there. And meanwhile, I've walked into the arena and I'm 6'3" with work boots on, 6'4". I'm about 140 kilos. I had short hair, blonde, sort of like Tito Ortiz. So I'm standing at the runway where the wrestlers come out. This is before the show, and all these kids are coming in, lining up to grab their seats. But they're all coming up to me with their cameras out, taking pictures of me. I said, what are you doing? They said, you're one of the wrestlers. This is great. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm only here to work security. And they were like, no, you're definitely one of the wrestlers. And I said, I'm not, I swear. long story short, at the end of the show, I'm still standing there. I haven't moved. And the kids have looked at me and I said, see, I told you I wasn't a wrestler. And they're like, ah. So the promoters come out.
A lot of times in the United States, like we'll have big security guys, right? And they'll be part of the show. Like they'll do a run in, or they're a lot of times the security guys are the trainees for the indie feds, the guys that aren't ready to get in the ring and actually wrestle. They still are part of the show as the security personnel. So they weren't far off, but that's interesting.
They were pretty clever, because the promoter came out to me after the show and he said to me, he said, you know, how'd you like the show? I said, the show was great. I said, I loved it. I said, what about you? Was everyone happy? And he said, yeah, everything was really good except for one thing. I said, okay. I said, what's that? And I'll take care of it. He goes, you. I said, oh, what did I do wrong? He said, everyone was looking at you and they weren't looking at the ring. And I said, oh, okay. I said, yeah, look, I won't work the shows anymore. I said, I'll stay away. And he goes, no. You love wrestling? I said, yes. He said, let's train you up and let's put you in the ring. Okay. So I did 8 months worth of training. I kept working the shows, standing there doing nothing. And then by the time my training had finished, we had a show where we had a television sports reporter, a famous television sports reporter, come out in the show to interview the heels at the end of the show when they won. And I'm standing there again, and all of a sudden the heels turn on the news reporter and they start beating him down in the ring, just absolutely working him. And I'm still standing there and everyone's screaming and yelling, and all of a sudden, the old Hulk Hogan, off comes the security shirt, like a bolting into the ring, wipe out all of the heels and save Mark. And that is the start of my my babyface run and my debut into wrestling.
Wow. Well, that's great. Now, you said you were 6'3" or whatever. So when you were growing up, did you do a lot of other athletic things, or were you a weightlifter, or you are a huge guy. How did you get so big? And what did you do with that size?
When I was in school, I was probably a little short and chubbier when I was in primary school early on. When I hit high school, I sort of scouted up, came a little bit taller, but skinnier. But I played basketball, played volleyball, but I started training in the gym when I was about 16. My dad took me to the gym, and I was able to do very basic moves. Not a lot, because I still wasn't old enough to be in the gym properly. But I started when I was 16, and it just stuck with me because, one, I could build myself up to look like a wrestler. Two, I loved bodybuilding. I loved Arnold and all that sort of stuff. And the action heroes from the 80s were all jacked as well. So that was my inspiration to stick with the bodybuilding and the weightlifting instead of any other sort of sport.
Yes. Now, did you take any kind of martial arts training or boxing or MMA training before you got in the ring?
Yeah, I did karate for years, and I have a black belt in karate. So I used to teach karate when I was young. So when I was skinny and thin, I could throw the kick, all this sort of stuff. Don't ask me to do it now. It's not going to happen.
We all age much faster than we want to when it comes to that sort of stuff. But that's great. Black belt in karate. Where did you study karate?
It was just, I'd met a security guard where I was working when I was younger. I worked in a video arcade in town, and the security guard that worked in the mall was a karate instructor, and we became friends. He asked me if I wanted to join, and I went out to learn from him. He taught in a high school gym out north somewhere. So every week I'd go out there twice a week and train with him and just work my way up from there.
So tell me about your career as a wrestler. Now, did you ever hold any titles, and did you ever wrestle any big name stars or on cards with big name stars?
Yeah, I wrestled for 15 years. I was 8-time Australian heavyweight champion. I won a world title 3 times. I've wrestled on the show with the likes of Chavo, Guerrero, Orlando Jordan. I wrestled Scott Steiner myself. He was my final match. I wrestled him. I've been on the show with quite a few people from WWE and a few other shows. But yeah, 3-time world heavyweight champ, 8-time Australian heavyweight champ, and I got inducted into the AAW Australian Wrestling Hall of Fame as well.
That's fantastic. Now, did you ever have a chance to wrestle outside of Australia? And if so, where else did you wrestle?
Yeah, I came over to America for a while and I wrestled over there. I wrestled in Chicago, Indianapolis, and a few other places around that area there. I was there for about a month and a half, I think. And, I ended up on a show with Marty Jannetty. I was there with Doink the Clown and a few other people. It was I won one of my world titles over there.
Oh, that is great. Yeah, in fact, I was looking through your profile and I saw you did an interview and you're wearing a T-shirt from the Alley in Chicago.
Yes.
I've been to the Alley, and what an amazing, crazy store that is, isn't it?
I love that shop so much.
Yeah, that place is nuts. I have a couple of bumper stickers from there because it was just so wild, out of control kind of place. So what were your thoughts on the differences of wrestling in the United States versus wrestling in Australia? Did you feel there were significant differences, or are they both the same in your opinion?
Look, it's more serious and more passionate over there in America. It is definitely a business over there. In Australia, it's somewhat, I don't want to say backyardish, but some of the places do put on really professional shows and they draw really good crowds. 300, 400, 500 people will come to a show. But it's much the same, really. I mean, look, I did a show in a car park in America. I can't remember what state I was in. And we had a wrecked car parked next to the ring that we could use and throw our opponent on and smash them through the window and all sorts of stuff like that. And I'd never seen that before here in Australia ever. That was crazy.
Wow, that's quite a story there too. So from wrestling, you then morphed into acting. Am I correct? Did you act while you were wrestling, or did you wait till your wrestling career was close to being over before you started acting?
No, I started acting while I was still wrestling. It was funny. I was going to a place called the SA Film Corp. I can't remember what for. I think I was to drop something off. And I've walked across the street and this lady's come running up to me and she's going, "Oh my God, who are you?" I said, "My name is Wayne Mattei." She goes, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm here to drop something off." She goes, "You're mine. Come with me." She grabbed me. And she was an agent and she dragged me into her office and she signed me up then and there. And then within 2 weeks, I think I was in my first movie. So it was kind of ironic. It all happened really quick.
Explain to me some of your movie experience then when you started off acting.
I did a movie. My first film was Broken Hill, which is an outback country town in South Australia, actually. My eldest son lives out there. And I played a prisoner in jail. Back then, I didn't have any tattoos, mind you, either. I was just a big, young-looking kid. So I played a prisoner in jail. I moved on from there to The Boys Are Back with Clive Owens. I've done Pirates of the Caribbean. I played a pirate in that one, The Dead Man Tell No Tales. A movie called Never Too Late with James Cromwell. I played a big nasty male nurse, which was kind of fun. I remember what else. A horror called Ribs, which is quite a gore film, so fun as well.
Oh, we're having a little bit of interference there. I hope that came through. In fact, if you don't mind repeating your the films that you were in, because I think that Skype may have dropped that for just a sec. Sorry. So if you...
No, that's fine. Look, my first film was Broken Hill, which is about an outback town in South Australia. I played a prison inmate. Then from there, I was in a movie called The Boys Are Back with Clive Owens. I've done Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man Tell No Tales. I was a pirate in that film. I did a movie called Never Too Late with James Cromwell and a few famous Australian actors, Jackie Weaver, Jack Thompson. Then recently I've done a horror / punk splatter film called Rib Spreader, which is kind of a really gory horror film. So that was pretty exciting as well.
Wow, that's that. Now, did you hear about those opportunities in Australia or from your agent, or did you just read about them? How did you find out about those opportunities?
A lot of them come through your agent. Sometimes it's people you know that are making the film that are looking for someone. I mean, my agent, Ann Peters, was great. She got me into Young Rock. She was the one that got me cast as Sgt Slaughter for season 1 and season 2. So you definitely need to have an agent to be able to help you, progress further and get bigger roles.
Yeah, now that does lead us into you being Sgt Slaughter in Young Rock. Now, did you just apply for any part that was in Young Rock, or specifically for the role of Sgt Slaughter?
Yeah, look, that's a funny story in itself. First of all, they asked me to audition to play Brutus Beefcake, and when I got that, I thought, yeah, I'm about the right size of Beefcake back then in the 80s, but I had, I'm covered in tattoos and I had a shaved head, so I didn't have any hair. So I thought, all right. So I still did the audition, and when I do an audition, I like to get dressed up as much as I can like the character. So I got a dinner vest. I had the bow tie, but I had no shirt on underneath. We got these pink armband things that my wife helped me get for my hands, like Beefcake used to wear. And then I got a big pair of the Cicateers like he had when he was the barber. So I looked the part and I delivered the lines and we sent it off. Waited for a while and I hadn't heard anything. And I didn't really know what the show was about yet. They didn't tell me. Then they come back to me and I found out what the show was. And I said, look, you need to get me in this show. I want to be in the show. They said, okay, look, hold on. We'll see if there's something else. They might want you to audition for something else. I said, okay. Then, this is just so random, this one. They come back and they asked me to audition for King Kong Bundy. And I'm like, okay, I got a shaved head, I get it, but, I'm missing about, 300 pounds around this way.
And the guy that got us King Kong Bundy looks really like him. So it's weird that they would even consider you, because but just looking at you straight out, I don't think Sgt Slaughter, when we talk back and forth like this, but in the show, you're very convincing as Sgt Slaughter. So how did you get into that role and decide that was the one for you? And then how did you study to become Sgt Slaughter?
Well, when they asked me, they come back and they said, look, we've got another one we want you to do. Have you heard of Sgt Slaughter before? And I laughed. I said, are you kidding? Of course I have. They said, look, they want you to try out for him. And I went, okay. So obviously I knew Sarge had a really raspy voice. He was loud, he was the drill sergeant. So I just, again, big camouflage jacket, camouflage hat. I bought the aviator sunglasses. I even got a lanyard with a whistle, which I had around my neck. And I sat to the camera and I did my audition. And they said, we want you to ad-lib a little bit too. We want to see if you can be funny, So I thought, all right. So I delivered my lines, and in the section I had to draw on a bit of paper that I was taking notes for Macho Man. So I'd said that, and then I turned my paper around and showed it to the camera, and I drew a stick figure of Macho Man on the top rope, just about to deliver the elbow onto someone. And so then I pretended to be Macho Man and done the, oh yeah, and all this. Then I threw the pad across the table, and I did a couple other silly things. I can't remember. I just thought, you know what, I don't care. I'm just going to give it a shot. What have I got to lose? And then it was about 8 weeks. I waited and I heard nothing at all. In between, I'm ringing my agent going, have you heard anything? Have you heard anything? And they're like, no, just wait. So then they came back to me. They said, look, you're about 90% there to get the role. I said, great. I said, well, what's the holdup? And they said, your black beard is the problem. I said, well, Sarge has a moustache. I get that. Excuse me. They said, yeah, but we can't see your jawline. Because Sarge has such a pronounced jaw and chin, they said they need to see. Yeah, there you go. That's it. So they said to me, your choice is shave it off, let them see you, possibly get the role, possibly not, or leave your beard on and probably definitely not get the role. And I said to my wife, I said, oh my God, what am I going to do? I said, I haven't shaved my goatee or my beard off in at least 20 years. She said, you know what, you grow hair that quick, take it off, just do it. So I was standing there in the mirror with my electric razors, shaving all this hair off, and it's falling in the sink, and I'm like crying, going, oh my God, there's all my beard gone. And then I fashioned the mo so it's like Sarge. And I looked in the mirror and I've looked at myself and I've gone, yeah, maybe, I don't know. And then I realised I could push my bottom jaw forward so that my bottom teeth went in front of my top teeth, and I could stand there and really push my jaw out, and it looked like Sarge. So I thought, all right, so we took some photos of me doing that, and we sent it off, and it was less than a day. They've come back and they've gone, bang, you've got the role. That's amazing. Well done.
Wow. Now, this has always fascinated me about people who are from places like Australia or England who have such a different accent than the United States. How did you perfect the voice of Sgt. Slaughter and become an American that way? How did you study for that? And how did you get the voice?
The American accent I've probably done for years, because obviously being a wrestler, my depiction of being a professional wrestler is you are American. You know, if you go to watch some of the shows here in Australia or wherever, and you've got a young lad that's in tap-out shorts and a tap-out T-shirt, and he's talking in the crowd, and he's got the Aussie accent and the Aussie slang, it doesn't really do it for me. I want to see somebody that's got that American accent, trash talking somebody outside the ring, really giving them some heat. So I figured that's what I was going to do. So most of my wrestling career, I'd kind of had somewhat of an American accent, especially when I got in the ring, I'd switch it right on. Then to get the raspiness of Sarge, I had to sit there and like yell and scream for about 10 minutes to really make my voice really hoarse before it would actually be there. So even on set, I'd be in the trailer just yelling, trying to get that real growl in my voice. But it came to that the lady that would work on set with you to perfect your accent came up to me in the trailer when I was getting my makeup done. And she starts talking to me. So I just start talking to her in an American accent. And I thought, I'm just going to do it now. She's chatting away and everything's all good. And she's going through her paperwork. And she goes, where are you from again? I said, I'm from Australia. She's looking, she goes, you ever lived in the States at all? No, never. She goes, oh. She goes, well, I don't have to deal with you at all. Crossed my name off and walked out. So my accent was spot on.
Wow. What is different? What is it about the American accent that you feel is so different from the Australian things? And what do we say and what do we do in the United States? Because obviously everyone thinks they don't have an accent until you hear somebody else's accent, and then you go, well, okay, what's different about? I've always been mystified because I think Americans don't have an accent. It's you guys who do. So what is it about American accents that you think are so different from Australian accents that you could point out to us? I'm always curious about that.
Yeah, the American accent seems more formal and more polite somewhat to what the Australian accent. We have an accent, sort of, it's called slang that we use in the Australian language. It's, when you go, g'day, mate, how are you, mate? Yeah, mate. It's really laid back. It's really casual. If someone says something to you, yeah, mate, what, like this, whereas an American would go, yes, sir, really politely, like, yes, sir, yes, sir. And whereas we're so casual and so laid back, it's like, you don't really care. Yeah, mate, whatever you want, no worries. Good on you, mate. See you later. Where you're like, thank you, sir. Bye. See you again. Bye. See you next week. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So it's,
nobody says sir around here, by the way. I don't know where you get that. No one says sir. I personally find the Australian accent totally delightful. It's like one of my favorite things. I could listen all day to you Australians talk, and to me, I love it. So I don't think it's more wild than stuff, and especially if you think of like the Southerners, the Southern accent versus what I don't recognize the accent, but tell what things about me are. Did you study American films too, or TV shows that helped, bring that accent forward for you?
Well, I was a big movie buff, so I used to watch a lot of films, a lot of the American action films. And I wouldn't say that,
Yeah, I see the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing behind you. I see the Arnold Schwarzenegger nameplate behind you.
That's the big encyclopedia, Arnold Schwarzenegger Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. And I actually met
great
Arnold.
bodybuilder, terrible governor.
Yeah, I met him back in '96. I was in Columbus, Ohio. I went over there for the World Gym Expo, and I got to meet him over there, which was really cool. So, but I certainly wouldn't think that Arnold taught me how to speak the American accent. There's no way, because his is quite distorted. Same with Stallone, with the way that he speaks. It's not, it's not very clear. So I don't know how I really picked it up. It was just a case of, I guess, trying to mimic things. A lot of the wrestlers, when they would cut promos, they would say things certain ways. So I just pick up on little things like that, I think.
Yeah, it's funny because when I found out that you were Sgt. Slaughter, I was like, and you're from Australia. I was like, really? He's from Australia? Wow, I never would have guessed. You seem so American, and you had that down so well. And to be America's hero, quote unquote, Sgt. Slaughter, and not even be from America, that's quite an acting job. I'll give you that. So, tell me about working on The Rock. So tell me about when you found out that you were on the show, The Young Rock, and what was your reaction?
Yeah, well, look, once I'd found out what the show was I was auditioning for, then I became obsessed that I wanted to be on the show. And then we'd done the audition for Sarge. We'd done the photos where I'd taken my beard off. And then I was driving in the car, and I think I was possibly heading down to pick our son up from school, and my agents rang me, and she has a certain way of speaking. She gets on the phone. I said, hello. She goes, oh my God, darling, you've got it. And I've gone, I've got it? I've got what? She goes, you're the sergeant. You've got the role. And I'm like, yes. And I was like so excited driving the car. I had to make sure I didn't smash into anything. But then I hung up from her and rang my wife straight away and told her, because she knew how important it was to me and how long we'd waited for it. So it was a nice sort of sigh of relief to know that I actually made it right at the end.
And where was The Young Rock recorded? In the United States or Hawaii? Where was it? Where was it filmed?
No, it was filmed in Queensland, Australia. So up the top right-hand corner of Australia, the Gold Coast and Brisbane, and that is on the coast itself is actually quite a lot like Hawaii, especially in the weather as well, let alone the beaches and the seafront. It's quite easy to depict it as Hawaii.
Now, as a personal thing, I actually had some clients that were based, I'm a lawyer, in real life, and I had some clients that were based in Australia in Queensland. And I learned from those clients that Mad Max, which was also filmed in Queensland, right? That is more of a documentary. That is more of a documentary than a piece of science fiction when dealing with the people of Queensland. They're pretty wild out there, aren't they?
Yeah. I'm not sure how much of it was actually filmed up there. I know there was probably a bit. There was, again, the film that I said I was first in when I started acting called Broken Hill, which is right in the middle of Australia, in the middle of nowhere. It's desolate. It looks like it's been through an apocalypse. That is actually where they did film Mad Max, and they have just finished filming Furiosa, the new film as well. So in the middle of nowhere, it's all dirt and dust. There's nothing for miles, and it's the perfect place to make it look apocalyptic. Some of the other stuff, yes, would have been done in Queensland, the sound stages. You've got Village Road show up there. You've got Warner Brothers, all these different places where you can do some of the other stuff as well. But when you get to that really dense, deserted, desolate style image, that's where they have to go right in the middle of the outback.
Another friend of mine described Australia as a place where everybody loves you. All the people love you, but everything else wants to kill you. Everything else you run into in Australia, other than the kangaroos, basically will kill you. And why is it that such a wonderful place like Australia has so many crazy animals and creatures that are like, you look at the deadliest spiders in the world, they're all in Australia. The deadliest snakes in the world, most of them are in Australia. All the sharks, all the crocodiles or alligators, whatever you have, they're all in Australia. So I'm amazed you've been able to make it through Australia in one piece sometimes. Have you had any weird encounters with any crazy animals out there?
Is there what? Sorry?
Have you had any weird encounters with any of the crazy animals that are out there in Australia?
Well, no sharks, because I'm absolutely petrified of them, so I won't go in the ocean whatsoever. I was scarred from the minute I saw the movie Jaws, even though the shark was so ridiculous.
I just watched that with my daughter, by the way, so I get you on that. And then, of course, I live just a few miles away from the breeding grounds for all the great whites off of the shore of San Francisco. The Farallon Islands are where they all go out. Well, there's a million sea lions out there, and so the sharks all fatten up on them, and then they breed right outside our, within swimming distance of Alcatraz. So yeah, it's you probably don't want to go out here for any surfing or anything like that. But any other crazy experiences you might have with any of the flora fauna out there?
Yeah, no, like I sound like a big chicken. I'm scared of sharks. I'm petrified of snakes. So you remember in season 2 of Young Rock, I had to wrestle Jake the Snake Roberts in the ring. He's given me the DDT, and then he's pulled at the time, I think they called the snake Desmona, this big, massive snake out, and he's had to put it all on me. Well, that was the most horrific thing I've ever done. I hate snake. They tried to get me to touch and be around the snake prior to shooting and get used to it.
Damien was the snake. I think Damien was.
Yeah, Damien came after this one. That's how they made it. They had Desmona because he put the snake on me, and then later on in the season, I end up cooking the snake in the barbecue. So Desmona's dead, but then at the end of the show, he brings out a new baby snake, and that baby is Damien.
Oh, okay.
And then you will see in season 3, which is playing now, the episode that played, we just saw it last night. There's Jake Roberts standing in the locker room there, and he's got this monstrous snake hanging off him. That was about 110 pounds, Ben, the actor, told me. And that there is the fully fledged size Damien. So me and snakes don't mix. Spiders, they're not bad. I haven't had too much interaction with them. We see a few. There's a real deadly one called a redback that you'll find, and in your drains around the house, out back somewhere, you'll see them. Kind of just squish them and move on. You don't want them around you at all.
So tell me about working with Dwayne Johnson. How much interaction did you really have with him, and what was it like to work with him?
Look, we didn't have any. It was a shame because we were in Queensland. I think he was scheduled to come over at some stage, but then his whole family got COVID. So then they had to recover. And I think the protocols for traveling overseas and having to quarantine, they had to be in a hotel quarantine for 2 weeks prior to being able to let out to come to us. I think it was just too hard. So some of the other cast, some of the guys that were playing the rock, like Yuli and Bradley and Adrian, they got to talk to him on Skype and so on. I had a very small interaction with him, and it wasn't a personal interaction. What had happened was, in season 1, when we were filming the Battle Royal, during practice for the Battle Royal, I ended up tearing my hamstring. I did a grade 1 tear in the back of my hamstring.
Ugh.
And the whole back of my leg turned black. And he said to me, what are we going to do? If you can't walk and you can't move, we're going to have to recast you, and we're going to have to reshoot everything again. So I'd just been through this massive audition deal, waited this long to get on the show, and then I go and tear my hamstring. So I said to them, just give me a couple of days. I'm sure I'll be fine. And we found a cryotherapy place just up the road from our hotel where you can go into this big, it's like a freezer. And they put you in there like under 140 degrees for like 3 minutes to help heal. So I did that twice, and that seemed to help somewhat. And they got a physio on set the day we were filming the Battle Royal, and they taped me up and did everything they needed to. We got in the ring, and I mean, if you've ever been in the ring yourself, I'm sure you have. Once you get in there and you get in front of everyone, you forget everything. If you'd had a sore shoulder, pain's gone. Like my hamstring, pain had gone. I got in there, I did everything I had to do. I got thrown out of the ring and ended up landing in the announce table. And then I swiped all the gear off the announce table and started abusing everyone in the crowd. Once I got off camera and stood there and started to cool down, then I was like, oh, now I feel what I've done wrong is my hamstring. But I managed to get all of the filming and every shot that they needed done so that they were extremely happy. So what happened is when we were back home and I was resting, we had a member of production come to the door, and they've knocked on the door, and my wife's answered the door, and he said, oh, is Wayne here? And they said, yeah, hold on. They've come in and got me out of bed. He's walked over and given me this really tall brown paper bag, and on the front it said something along the lines of, To Wayne, we really appreciate all your efforts you've put in for this production. Thank you so much, Dwayne Johnson. And when I opened it up, it was a bottle of Dwayne's Terramana tequila that he gave me.
Wow. Wow. Now, did you have to have surgery on your hamstring, or how did you recover from that? Or have you not recovered?
No, I haven't fully recovered. It was lucky enough, even though it's still a grade 1 tear, as long as I took care of it, it was going to heal. And it's been, I think it's over 2 years now. So I'm back training as normal, leg training in the gym, all sorts of stuff like that. So no issues now. I was very lucky.
In fact, that was something I was going to ask you about. Is your training regimen? So you're still training now. How much do you work out, and how often every day, and what's your routine like?
Every day I train. I train with my wife every day. We've got a gym in our house. Plus, I'm sponsored by a gym called Anytime Fitness, so I get free membership at the gym. So every day I train a different body part with my wife. Standard bodybuilding training procedure. It's what I've done. It's all I know how to do. And I still weigh, like now I weigh 136 kilos, which is 300 pounds in your metric system. I'm still in great shape. I'm training for a film, which we'll talk about a little bit later, I'm sure. So I'm starting to get in shape for that. But bodybuilding has been my life ever since I was young. It's all I've ever known. It's all I've ever wanted to do. So I like looking the way that I look. I like to look like a professional wrestler, because I walk down the street and people look at me and they stop and they keep looking like this as I walk past. And my wife sees it all the time. And she says to me, "Did you just see that?" And I've gone, "No." She goes, "Everyone, when you walk past, just stares at you." I'm like,
well, I read a story that you published. I read a story that you published on your Facebook saying that when you came to America, everyone thought you were Hawk from the American Gladiators and wanted to take your picture.
Yes, that was back in '96. I went over there. That's when I went for the World Gym Expo. So I'm about 21. Yeah, 21. I've got this blonde flat top, perfectly bleached blonde flat top. I've got a nice tan. I've got all the latest bodybuilding gear on, which I've just bought from Gold's Gym because I was in LA doing that. And I've gone to, I think it was Universal Studios. And I'm walking down, and all of a sudden there's this ginormous group of Asian tourists coming along. And one of them's pointed at me and they just yelled something, and they just come running at me. And they've all got these cameras and they go, bah, 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 like this. And I'm looking and I'm going, what's going on? And the person that ran the tour was there, and she was Asian, but she spoke English. And she goes, "Excuse me?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "You're Hawk from Gladiators, aren't you?" I said, "No." She said, yes, they all think you're Hawk from Gladiators. I said, "No, I'm from Australia." She goes, no. And I've looked and I've gone, you know what? Screw it. So I've just gone, yes, I'm a Hawk from Gladiators. Yes, I am. And they've all come around me and they've taken pictures and all this sort of stuff. And we're all like, yeah. And then they left because I figured if I kept saying no, they weren't going to leave me alone. So I had pictures with them and then they walked off. Now,
the other part about your routine is we're doing a show in a couple of weeks on wrestling and food. I want to find out, what is your dietary regimen to stay at 300 pounds and be as huge as you are? What is your day like food wise, and how do you manage it?
Yeah, look, I've just had a friend of mine, Jeremy, write my diet up for me to prepare for this new film. So in the morning when I wake up, I have 3 eggs any way that I want on 2 bits of rye toast, plus an apple and a protein drink. Mid-morning, I will go to chicken and rice with about 150 grams of pineapple. That's like a pre-workout meal. I then go train. After I train, I have a massive bowl of cereal, whatever cereal I like, plus a banana and a protein shake. Mid-afternoon, then I'll have a bowl of lean beef mince with vegetables and rice. Then in the evening, I go to a container of chicken and rice with veggies as well, plus a protein shake. And then just before bread, I have 2 pieces of rye toast, a protein shake, and 2 small pieces of dark chocolate. So that's my diet every day.
Wow. Now, from the United States, was there any particular food that you had while you were here that you said, wow, I wish they had that in Australia? And if so, what was it?
When I first got there in '96, when I was at Universal Studios, we were there and I was starving. And I was actually in the midst of when I was going to get home from America, I was going to compete in a bodybuilding contest. So I had 9 weeks to diet for the contest once I'd left America. So I thought I'm going to eat whatever I can while I'm in America then, because then I have to diet when I get home. Back then in '96, we had never heard of a foot-long hot dog at all. We'd never seen a foot-long hot dog, never. And because we're at Universal Studios, sure enough, they're selling foot-long hot dogs. I'm like, oh my God, look. So I think I bought 6. And I ate all 6 of them. And I was feeling a bit funny afterwards, but I was all right. And I remember it because I walked past and they had the kit car from Knight Rider sitting there. And it had the red light going across and all this. And people were sitting in the driver's seat and they were like, Kit goes, ask me a question, ask me anything. And they're asking questions and he's answering them and they're like, oh my God, they must ask a question about the show or something. And I thought, that's silly. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go in there. So I've hopped in the car and I've sat down. I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel real good, but that's all right. And Kit says to me, hello, sir, ask me a question. I'm looking around the car and I'm trying to think, I'm going, all right, smart ass, what shirt am I wearing? And he's all of a sudden he's gone, you're wearing a white bodybuilding top that says flex down the left-hand side. And I'm, where is he? I'm trying to see where the guy is, thinking, he's got to see me somewhere. That just flipped me out. And then I've got out of the car and I said I can't remember who I was with, I said, did you see anyone looking at me? And they've gone, no, the car picked what you had on. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
But it was funny.
That's pretty funny. So, so tell me about your transition from what you were doing there to now making films and writing films and producing them. Tell me how that transitioned to all of that.
So the way I got into doing my own films and script writing and that was when COVID really hit and we were all in lockdown and we couldn't do much. I started writing. I essentially started to write a wrestling film first called Kayfabe, and it was going to be about a heel that couldn't drop that persona in real life. Every time everyone saw him, they'd hate him. They'd just think he's just this evil bastard that was from the wrestling. They couldn't separate the two. And I got partway through that, and I got, I don't know what you call it, writer's block, or I froze. I just couldn't get it to go any further. So I put that on the side on my computer, and I was just thinking one day, and I don't know how I came across it, but I started to think about the TV show Gladiators. In America, you have it as American Gladiators. Over here, it was a massive hit, just like in America. It was these superhero big men and women that were competing against, the average day Joe that would come in and try and compete. So, funny story, was back in the 90s when it was a massive hit, I actually went and tried out for Gladiators. I'd just come back from America where I was told I looked like Hawk, and I'd won a bodybuilding contest. I won Mr. South Australia, so I was jacked, I was tanned, I had a blonde flat top, and I've turned up to the tryouts, and I was late. I've walked in and they're like, hurry up, hurry up. So I've unzipped my jacket and I've taken it off and I've walked out and everyone's just stopped and looked at me like this, like, who the hell is this? I'm walking out there and I'm thinking, oh, this is all good. Start to do all the exercises and the fitness things, and it's taxing. It's really hard. I don't think a lot of people actually know how hard the tryouts are. So I make my way all the way through. I get to the end where you talk to the producers, and this lovely lady, I can't remember her name, she pulls me aside. She goes, come here, darling. I said, yes. She goes, you're wonderful. I said, great, thanks. She goes, but that's the problem. And I said, why is that a problem? She goes, you're bigger than some of the gladiators we've cast. I said, oh, okay. I said, can I be a gladiator? I said, that's probably the real reason why I'm here. She goes, look, unfortunately, we've picked them all. There's no room. And I went, oh. I said, okay. So I didn't worry about it. And, every Saturday night it was on, I would watch it and I'd love the show, but I'd be cursing the show too and going, that could have been me. That should have been me. I should have been that gladiator. Yeah. Fast forward to 2008, they decide to reboot the show here in Australia. So they recast the entire show. They recast the gladiators, all the challenges, and they have this massive open day called tryout. So again, I'm thinking, all right, I'm still in great shape. I'm going to give it another shot. So I lined up. There's this huge line. And we get in and we go through all the trials. I make my way through again. I get to the final point where you have to basically cut a promo to the camera, to the producers. So I do that, and I'd been wrestling a little bit then, so I kind of had an idea on what I was doing. And then a few weeks later, I get the call, and they say, "Thanks very much, Wayne, but unfortunately, you didn't make it. It was between you and another guy." I said, "Who was the other guy?" They said, "Oh, it was Derek Boyer." Derek Boyer is a strongman from Australia, from New Zealand. He had just had a small part in the movie Street Fighter with Van Damme. Very small part, almost like an extra. And they said, "Look, he's got a bit of acting experience and stuff, so we're going to go with him." And I'm like, "Okay, yep, fine." I watched the show on TV, and it's an absolute disaster. The casting is terrible. None of the gladiators have any sort of charisma. They're not even fit. Like, they're fit, but they're not big. They don't look how the gladiators should look. And I think it died after the first season. It was just dead in the water. I'm thinking, I'm glad I didn't get on that show. So when COVID had hit, for some reason I was sitting there one day and I was thinking about gladiators and all that, and I've gone, you know what, shit, no one's ever done a film about the TV show. I don't know why, but no one's ever thought of writing a movie. So I started writing, and because I knew about the process of the trials on how to get in, I'd actually made friends with one of the original gladiators from the 90s. His name was Vulcan. He was a Fijian guy, real big guy. So he was one of my best friends. So I knew about everything with the process of the filming the TV show. So I just started writing, and I started typing away, and then it just become an obsession. You know, I'd be here all day smashing out words, and my wife would come in at about 5 o'clock with a vodka and soda water and put it on my desk and go, "There you go, beautiful."
But I thought all you Australians drank beer. I thought that was so that's one of the stereotypes we have of you out here.
Yeah.
It wasn't. There's the Simpsons. There's that Simpsons episode where Marge goes to the bar and says, "I want a coffee." And he says, "Beer?" And she goes, "Coffee?" And he goes, "Beer?" She says, "COFFEEBEER," and then winds up giving her a beer. So we all think that's like you have beer, breakfast, lunch, and dinner out there, you know, in Australia. So
yeah, I'm sorry to let you down, but yeah, maybe not. But I'd become obsessed with writing the script because things kept coming into my head, and I had to get them out faster, otherwise I'd forget. So I think it was less than a week and a half, and I had written out 148 pages of a script, and it was start, finish, film about the TV show Gladiators, but I changed it to create the TV show Vigilantes instead of Gladiators. And what I'd also done is, instead of copying their original games that they would have on the show, I created my own games. I created a game called Panic, where basically it's a round room. You have the contestant in the round room there, and he has to sort this puzzle out to make the puzzle. But attached to the round room are 3 sort of tube tunnels. In each tunnel is a vigilante, and what they do is they smash their way through sets of walls until they gain entry into that main pod where you're doing the puzzle. And if you haven't finished the puzzle, they'll spear tackle you, or they'll do clothesline you, or they'll do something to take you out so you can't finish the puzzle. Hence why it's called Panic, because you're shitting yourself trying to put it together while you hear these animals going, "Roar!" just smashing through the wall.
Neat.
Yeah, and I created one called Wrong Move, which basically is a ginormous maze. You start off running to try and make your way through. 10 seconds later, a vigilante joins in, starting to chase you. But what you have to remember is, on the floor in certain parts, there's a pressure pad that if you step on that pressure pad, a gate opens inside the maze and releases another vigilante. So you can potentially have 3 vigilantes chasing you in this maze before you can find your way out. And of course, if they catch you again, they're going to spear tackle you through the wall. It's really amped up. It's like Gladiators times 100, but mixed with pro wrestling and mixed with The Running Man. You remember the 80s movie, The Running Man?
Absolutely. And I read the book from Stephen King.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you mix pro wrestling, you mix the Gladiators, and you mix The Running Man together, and that 3 there is the movie Vigilantes that I've written.
Is that movie been completed yet, or are you still in the process of making it?
We're in the process of making it. The script is complete. We had help from some screenwriters to finalize it and fine tune it. We have just cast the people we need to film the proof of concept, which we are starting in January. Then from there, we shoot the proof of concept, which we have investors that have helped us out with so far. For then, once we get the proof of concept done, we put that out to bigger investors for them to come in and help us create the feature. We've put a lot of our own money into this as well. We were essentially wanting to go and try and sell the script to try and get it made. And the proviso would have been, of course, that I wanted to play my character in the film. We did that, and there was massive amounts of interest. Every time I've told somebody about the film, they're like, oh my God, this sounds so good.
I want to see it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you will. We'll make it and you'll be able to see it. But then I realized I didn't want to let it go. I didn't want to release my script, my dream, what I've written to a production company that could butcher it and change it to whatever way they wanted. I want to keep it as I've written it. So that's what we've done, and that's why we're creating the proof of concept. And I mean, my mind runs, 10 steps forward. I'm already thinking of merchandise, of action figures for the Vigilantes. I'm thinking of trading cards. I've got a guy in America, in LA, that's all ready to do the official comic book for Vigilantes. I've spoken to some people about the action figures already, a company over there that's interested, because in the film, we have the merchandise and the action figures, because the young, the little boy called Danny is obsessed with the TV show Vigilantes. So he's already got the action figures that he plays with. Those action figures will then transfer into merchandise that we will sell later on after the film is done. So the action figure company loves that, because we're already marketing the product in the film.
That's incredible. In fact, how did it feel to make yourself into an action figure? That's always been a weird, bucket list thing of mine to actually, see myself made, my wrestling managerial character made into an action figure. How did it feel to make yourself into an action figure?
It's interesting. I've had 2 action figures made of me so far. I've got them behind me. Let me grab them.
No, go ahead. Oh, you have a Funko. Nice.
Yeah. So I've got this one here. Somebody made this one a long time ago of me. I don't know how well you can see it, but you can see it's got all my gimmick and all that stuff with it.
The chair, yeah.
Yeah. So that one's a really old one. And then a company over here called Big Boy created
that is too cool.
Yeah.
To have your own Funko Pop is really cool. You are part of modern society lexicon when you've had a Funko Pop made of you. Nice.
One of those as well. So we're having a different action figure created for the film, for when we film. It's actually, there's a guy in America at the moment that actually has done a 3D mold of my head, and they're creating the head for the action figure with my beard and everything. And then there's an artist over there painting my tattoos on there at the moment. So I'll have that action figure will come back before Christmas. That'll be the one we'll use in the proof of concept to start with. So that'll be my 3rd action figure.
And then after Vigilantes is done, and supposedly, hopefully, that's a big success, what would be your next thing that you would want to do after that?
Vigilantes 2. I've already written it.
Nice. But do you have a concept for maybe the ultimate film that you would like to make, or is Vigilantes your ultimate film that you want to do, and you want to make as many as there are Jurassic Parks or Texas Chainsaw Massacres? You want to have 7 or 8 of them. What would you like the most to make a film about? Yeah,
look, I really want to finish kayfabe if I can, because my love for pro wrestling and all that, I think that's something really special, and I can really make something out of it. It's just a matter of me getting through whatever's stopping me from doing it. But with Vigilantes, it's a mix of everything that I love. I love the Gladiators TV show. I'm obsessed with the Running Man. I love the Stalkers. I love Buzzsaw. I love Sub-Zero, all of that. Then to mix pro wrestling in, in Vigilantes, when the Gladiators, well, not Gladiators, our Vigilantes come to compete, they have a wrestling entrance. The set is like the old 90s Raw is War. There's pyro, there's a big screen. They can walk down the ramp and there's fans on either side. All the signs in the crowd, everyone's going nuts. That's where we depict the crowd for Vigilantes. So I've got three of my favorite things mixed in there all together. It's an action film, but it's also a family-friendly film. It's called a 4-quadrant film, which means it's relatable to kids that are 8 years old, as young as 8, right up to an 80-year-old person. They will love this film because there's no sex, there's no drugs, there's no swearing, there's none of that. It's just a pure family action film, which you can really get. It's like if you mixed The Running Man, you mixed Rocky, you mixed, a few of those old-time action films together that, you have a section where there's a training montage where you want the character to make it. So Bo, the main character, has to go through the tryouts to try and make it onto Vigilantes. There's no guarantee he's going to make it on there, but he has to do it and try. So he has to train for the show. He has to do the tryouts and then try and compete. But then if he's to make it on the show, there is the vigilante champion, the maniac, my character, that he has to try and get through at the end along with everything else. And I mean, we've changed it slightly so the challengers have to compete against the vigilantes to win and win points. But the vigilantes are also playing a game within the game where they have to win points to be the vigilante champion at the end of the season and have a title belt like a wrestling belt.
They should have done that in American Gladiators. You make a good point. You make that's an excellent idea. Yeah. Actually, I like that.
There's a section right at the end where two of the gladiators, vigilantes, have to compete, and whoever wins in this competition, I won't spoil it, will then become the vigilante champion. Then we have, instead of having the two final contestants compete in what they used to call the eliminator course in Gladiators, which was the
I remember,
obstacle course.
Yes.
In Vigilantes, you have 4 competitors going at once, 2 men and 2 women, all together at the same time. But what they can do is, as they go through the course, they can stop each other, stop them from making it through. You can take them off the rings, or you can trip them up, or you can push them off something, or you can smack them and drop them whilst you're going through the obstacle course. Whoever can survive and make it at the end is the winner.
Do you hope that maybe they might do the reverse and take Vigilantes and make a TV show out of it and turn it into an actual competition?
Yeah, look, I would love. Originally, I think I wrote it as a TV show, and I wanted to pitch it to a TV show here in Australia. But then when I spoke to my friend from the original Gladiators, he told me that one of the main issues with why Gladiators failed in the end was the insurance, because so many people got hurt on the show. So, and it wasn't not from anything deliberate. It was just the way the game was, So I struggled with the fact that my version was going to be turned up 1,000 compared to Gladiators, where the vigilantes will brawl backstage between themselves, just like Raw. The camera will come running. All of a sudden, 2 vigilantes are going apeshit in a locker room, just trashing the place, fighting each other, to them having to compete in these horrible games like Wrong Move and Panic, where you can get hurt. I thought, you know what? A better way to do this is to make it a movie where no one has to get hurt. We can depict that it's brutal, but the insurance is not going to be that bad because no one will really get hurt.
And I got a couple more questions, and then we got to wrap it up. But the one thing that you've brought up a couple of times we haven't really gotten into is your family, and they seem so supportive of what you do. You have what, 2 sons?
Yeah, 2 boys. One that's 19, one that's 11.
Do they want to follow in your footsteps and do wrestling and be actors as well, or what do they want to do?
My 19-year-old, he lives, funny enough, in that town called Broken Hill, where Mad Max is filmed. He's a diesel mechanic, so he likes to work on trucks. He's a real country kind of a kid. He likes motorbikes. He likes driving around his 4-wheel drive, doing stuff like that. He likes shooting and hunting. So I don't know if Ashton will be interested in that. He might change his mind. The one thing that Ashton and I have in common, which I absolutely love, is he loves training. He loves going to the gym. We've really connected and bonded over this, where, he'll come down and we train together. We talk about training. I tell him about supplements and stuff and this and that. He's 6'5", he's 19, and he's 90 kilos already, which 90 would be over 100 and at least over 150 pounds at least.
It better be.
Yeah.
For that tall, yes.
Yeah. And then my 11-year-old Hunter, I think he's more of the show off. He wants to get into acting. He's already signed up with my agent. He's already been a crew member on a movie, so he's making his way up there. He's going to be part of the crew for Vigilantes for us as well. He's going to be the one called the Clapper, which essentially is the person here that holds.
Oh yeah. That's neat.
Goes like that.
Neat.
Yeah.
And your wife, what does she do?
She works for a law firm. She's a paralegal. So she does stuff in there for that, but she has also been involved in the writing of Vigilantes. She helped me with it, so we wrote it together, and then from there we took it to a couple of professional writers to help us fine-tune it, which was Ruth and Peter from a company called Word Ninjas. They were great. They helped us fine-tune it to what it is today.
Wow. Well, this has been a great interview. I got just one more question for you. Vegemite. What's the deal with Vegemite? Don't get it. Don't understand it. You guys love it. It's awful. Wow. Why you guys eat so much of it? I just don't get it.
Look, it's an acquired taste.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I think it was essentially made for cooking, where you would take a large teaspoon and mix it in if you were making a stew or something. But it's transported over the years into a spread that you eat. And now I can stomach the fact that I could have a piece of toast. I would put some butter on the toast that would melt, and then I would put an extremely thin portion of Vegemite on there, then a piece of cheese. Happy to eat that because it gives you that salty difference. But if you plaster it on like you're a concreter and you say, mate, have something to eat, there's no chance in hell I'm touching that sandwich. No way. I don't care if I'm Australian or not. It's not happening.
Wayne, I can't say how much fun I have had in interviewing you tonight. You are really one of my I don't want to make all the other people I interview jealous, but you are just the perfect interview. You're just so wonderful and so open with everything. I still would have another 100 questions to ask you if we had all night to talk. One of these days, my bucket list is to come down to Australia and hang out with you and visit you and all the things that you do. Or if you're ever here in San Francisco, you'd be my guest for anything you wanted. I'd take you out to dinner and all that stuff. But you are just really one of the greats, and I really have enjoyed our talk tonight. Why don't you give the people who are my fans and subscribers a way to keep track of you on social media and how they can contact you if they want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Look on Facebook. You can look up Wayne the Maniac Mattei. I have a fan page which is pretty interactive on there. Instagram is Wayne_Mattei, Mattei. My Instagram is pretty full on. We also have a motion picture company Instagram called Mattei Motion Pictures. If you look that up, that is our own production company that we've opened up, which is going to help create Vigilantes. And I also have a website, which is www.waynematei, which is WayneMattei.com.au. That's my official website. That'll show you all the movies I've done, everything I've done on TV, tons of photos. It's got all of my iPod interviews, my radio interviews. It's got my show reels. It's got everything on there.
Wayne Mattei, first of all, I called you Mattei, so don't punch me if we ever do wind up meeting you. I'll make sure I get that right next time. Wayne Mattei, you are the consummate professional. Really love our conversations. You would definitely want to have you on the show again, especially as you get closer to releasing the film. And, we'd like to know about more projects and everything else. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And it's almost the holidays here. I know it's almost summer over there, but it's almost Thanksgiving over here. So I wish you a happy American Thanksgiving holidays to you, and Christmas and all that stuff. And certainly want to catch up with you in the new year.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, my brother. It's been my privilege and an honor. I love being on your show.
Thank you so much. All right. Good night, everybody.
Yeah.